Here we go.
Okay. Resolve. Surveillance should be allowed. I worked for George Bush in the White House for all of his terms, and one of the most controversial things we did was the terror surveillance issue. This was around 9/11, and this is the stuff we had to do to save lives. Dick Chen. He was the vice president in the White House with George Bush. This was around 9/11, and their surveillance was not just on cameras. They had spies and stuff, and they did some stuff that was not okay in that time, I guess. And so I think it should be allowed because it helped catch many terrorists, and like for instance, the terrorists in the Boston bombings. The only reason why they were caught was because they're on surveillance and they knew what they looked like, so they kind of knew where they're from and what they're affiliated with. 227 terrorists have been caught by the NSA since 9/11. And on January of this year, the Congress and Senate passed a bill to stop the NSA from invading your privacy and not tracking your phone calls or listening to it without probable cause. And it also helps find missing people. This quote from a CNN article on a man in Michigan that went missing. Without the help of the drone, we would not have found that man in the woods on that day. And also, it helped find criminals like El Chapo. They found him in America, just walking around the streets and stuff, kind of. He wasn't really walking around, but. And then it helps just find people that you wouldn't know otherwise without them.
My argument is that surveillance technology should not be used. And this is a quote by Harry Snow. Technology is an odd thing. It brings you great gifts with one hand and stabs you in the back with the other. Which I think is a great quote because she explains the gift is like, she thinks that the gift is like, the technology is giving you more than what doesn't matter, is like unnecessary access. And the betrayal that technology gives you is like the loneliness that it brings you and the hacked accounts that surveillance could bring. My first argument is that people may be mistaken by their actions, and because like one harmless move can make it seem like a much more harmful action on a surveillance camera. Because if you like playfully punch your friend while you're walking by a bank that's secured with surveillance technology, and they think it's like you're trying to kill them or something, and people are accusing you of false motives. And my second argument is that surveillance invades privacy, and if it falls into the wrong hands, people may find out like your personal info, like information. And one of the examples that I have is that I have an experience that my mom and dad had their social security number found out by probably surveillance technology. And I have gathered information that, like the fact that newborn children have had their social security number taken away probably by surveillance technology. And when they turned 18, they couldn't do this stuff because their social security number has been taken away.
My resolve is
surveillance should be used. Surveillance keeps track of terrorists, and it also helps resolve arguments between police and other people. So if police officers have cameras on, like body cameras, they can tell who did what, and I'll get to that later. My first argument is that we can use it to stop terrorists. The Patriot Act, you guys probably haven't heard of it because I never heard of it, but it tracks calls, so if the government needs to find out things about terrorists, they can go through their calls and texts and everything that they've done. So if there's like a suspect, then the police can try and find out if they are an actual terrorist or not. And my quote is from Bill Gates. In the case of London, petty crime has gone down. They catch terrorists because of it, and if something really bad happens, most of the time you can figure out who did it. So in London, they have cameras on pretty much every street corner. So if there was like a robbery or something, and then the person couldn't exactly describe what the robber looked like, they can just go through the cameras and see who did it. My second argument is that police cameras can stop arguments, and they also tend to have people have better behavior around police cameras because they know they're being watched. So for example, Ferguson, Missouri, if the officer had a body camera or a camera in his car, then everyone could know who did what instead of going through all of the different records and stuff, because nobody exactly knows who did what, so the officer could have been falsely accused. But with a body camera, then they could have seen what exactly happened. And a pilot program went out at a police station, and the force fell between 59%, and complaints of different officers on different officers fell 88%. I have another quote. Once people realize they're being videotaped, everyone's just a little bit politer. A Mesa Police Chief, Frank Nilsson.
Okay, mine is surveillance technology should not be used. Surveillance is becoming more and more of our everyday lives, taking away even almost the thought of privacy. As Edward Snowden told, suspicionless surveillance does not become okay simply because it's only victimizing 95% of the world instead of 100%. People might not see it, but surveillance is becoming greater and greater every day. And government, companies are all starting or already have started monitoring and even storing data and information about people, like students, teens, and adults. My first argument is that surveillance makes people feel judged and watched. In almost every aspect of people's private life, surveillance makes them feel judged. When people know they are being watched, it makes them feel limited, like they can't say or do what they want to do. Evidence is University-wide Roche-Jason. Research by MJ Smith states that students or employees know they're being monitored while at work or in school make it more stressful for them, and they can have higher complaints of boredom, anxiety, depression, and it puts all the more pressure on them. As everyone may know, surveillance is becoming more accessible all around. Schools, companies, and other entities are all taking advantage of monitoring behavior. And at Gig Harbor High School in Washington, officials caught 2 girls from surveillance, and they were kissing and holding hands, and they showed their parents, and one of those girls were taken out of school. This is a perfect example that people get judged by surveillance on their own actions and it doesn't harm anyone, but yet they still get consequences for it. That one girl who got taken out of school. My second argument is that surveillance can take personal information and data. Most people are already aware that everything a person does on the internet is tracked, whether it's what you search, or even if you delete something, it can still come back. People can collect information or data about you that you don't even know is being collected. There has been identity theft because of this. A perfect example is my grandma's co-worker got identity theft twice from her credit card getting hacked twice. Evidence from Wall Street Journal states that public Wi-Fi networks you use, such as coffee shops or restaurants or stores, that you log on to can go far beyond location to genders, ages, social media accounts. With all the surveillance, nothing is private. Wait, and my evidence is an article by Catherine Crump and Matthew Harwood. Yeah.
Okay. Is that both arguments?
Yep.
Those both arguments, right? Everyone gave their first arguments? Okay, you guys have 1 minute to talk about your rebuttal, think about your rebuttal, and then we'll start in a minute.
Something she's good at too, arguing. Yeah, I didn't get real good into it.
This is the first class to go. All right, minutes up. So we're going to start with the negative side first on the rebuttal. Oh, you need the microphone too.
So, as Yana said, everybody behaves better. So, like people behave better because they're like kind of scared to go out because they feel like they're being judged or they're going to be mistaken by simple actions, and it's not really healthy to be under pressure. And if everybody is being watched, then everybody acts like behaves the same way, and it's going to be like a colorless world, and it's going to get us into like a terrible life. It's really.
Do you have a closing too?
The real problem is not whether machines think, but if men do, by B.F. Skinner. And if men don't think what they see on the camera, this world is going to be a better mess than it is now. And that is why surveillance should not be used.
Okay, so they talked about how people get hacked and they used on like wireless networks. The NSA has proven that over half of the hacks have not been like the US services to use their information, it has been private companies. So it's kind of your fault if you use your personal information on an open network that anyone can get on. And they had quotes from Edward Snowden, and he worked for the NSA, and he leaked private information of the US citizens, and then he left the country right after that. And he says he just wanted to help out the Americans, but he really just made more chaos than he did good. He also said that he never wanted to leak that information, he just thought it would be the best, but it proved that it really didn't. Here's my quote. Okay. So, there's been many terrorist attacks throughout our country for many years, and how many more terrorist attacks does it have to take so you can give up a little privacy and just so the American government can look at your Instagram or Snapchat if you have anything that bad on there? Why does it really matter? Because you shouldn't have anything to hide on your social media or web history or when you call somebody. So I'd just like to say, you shouldn't disagree with somebody because they have one fact.
Okay. Using surveillance, they said that using is this on? Oh yeah. Okay. They said that using surveillance helps with crimes and terrorist attacks and everything. That may be true, but that doesn't make it right for people to surveillance everyone's life. Like, not everyone should be tracked or be kept of history, and you know where I'm getting at. Like, yeah, and Jacob also said that it shouldn't really matter if they see like what you search or just like any information online or anything, because people have nothing to hide. But maybe some people don't want like people to see what they're doing or like what they search or what they say to other people, because they like messages and Snapchats can all be tracked and seen, and maybe they don't want that because that there's no right for everyone. Everyone has a right to privacy. That's what I'm getting at. Oh wait, my conclusion. Okay, yeah. Okay. Surveillance technology should not be used. It needs to get under control. As a man named Edward Snowden said, I grew up with the understanding that the world I lived in was once where people enjoyed a sort of freedom to communicate with each other in privacy without it being monitored, without it being measured or analyzed, or some sort of judgment by these shadowy figures or systems anytime they mention anything that travels across public lines. What he was getting at is that now is so much different than it used to be. Our privacy is getting pried from our hands, and we don't have that kind of freedom we used to. Instead, we have no privacy at all, and history can be tracked. Our Snapchats, what we do on social media, our text messages, nothing is private to us anymore. If people want it to be, it could be out in the open.
So they were saying how the surveillance breaks into your privacy, but they don't have cameras like in your homes, like stalking you, whatever you do. It's just out in the open where many crimes happen, like on the street corners and stuff. Because like in alleys, most crimes happen where people think that they're not being watched, but sometimes you are, and that helps out with the police trying to track down people and who did those crimes. And so my closing is that we need to use surveillance technologies for terrorism, to stop the terrorists getting into our country and doing things, and arguments over police and behavior. And also, we need to improve or make more technologies that help stop these things, because we have a lot of technology that helps with this, but we don't have all of it that helps stop it. So I have a quote from Jody Brown. At the end of the day, the goals are simple: safety and security. So if our country's goals are safety and security, then we need the surveillance to help keep our country safe from outsiders and people who come to make bad things happen in America.
Round of applause for the team.